Hello, everyone. All right, let me adjust my camera just a. There we go. Adjust my camera just a little bit. And so, definitely want to welcome everybody. You'll get notification that I'm going on live. Most of you will see this in the archive, but I'm going to give it a couple of minutes and see if we got a few people that will come on and join me live today. So today is a day that I don't want you to miss, and because it won't come around again for at least another. Hello, Kathy. Today will not come around again until about 2080. So I would say most of us are not going to be here at that point. Okay. I did not want you to miss it. Like I say, most of you are going to see this in an archive, but I wanted to bring it to your attention, and so wanted to give just a minute or so for people to come on and get the notification and pop on with me if they choose to. Okay, so I've suspended the Bible studies on Thursday nights because this particular year. Everything seems to be happening on Thursdays. And so just a reminder, I really appreciate everything that everybody has, all the support that everybody has given me. And so, when over the last 30 years, whenever I've been doing the live Bible studies, in-person Bible studies, then I would typically take off, most of December, and go into the first couple of weeks of January, simply because people are busy and they have things to do, and the holidays are time consuming and that sort of thing. Being online allows us to be a little bit more flexible as far as that goes. So that's the reason. But still, people are so busy. So everything this year is happening on Thursdays. So I went ahead and suspended the Bible study until I believe it's January 7. We'll have the regular Thursday night Bible study. But I didn't want people to miss today as well. And so, today, the 21st of December, it's not only the first day of winter officially. However, seeing as how we are in the midst of Christmas, wanted to talk about the star. I wanted to talk about the star. They call it the Star of Bethlehem. And of course, you know the story when the Magi came to Jesus. There were three of them. My understanding is they were not traveling together. They came from three different areas. From my understanding, one of them came from India, one of them came from Saudi Arabia, and one of them came from the China area. And then they saw this star, knew what it meant, and started following it to find out where it was going to lead them. They knew it was momentous, at a momentous occasion. And so they started traveling, and then they converged together and went the last bit to Jerusalem together, as far as I can tell during with my research. So science has always had a problem with the Bethlehem star, because preachers have told us that God created this special star and to go over, or I should say we assume oftentimes that God created this special star that pointed to the barn where Jesus was born, as well as to the house that he stayed in afterwards. And so, however, there are so many things that God does, so many things that he does ahead of time. And today is what we call a great confluence. Well, what in the world is that? And this is also what creation scientists believe happened with the Bethlehem star. It was not a special star that was created and, to go over the earth, to sit over top of the earth, but it was a confluence. What does that mean? Confluence is where you get planets that line up with each other from your perspective. So here on Earth, we have a perspective. We look out at the stars, and of course, we know that we are our planet is constantly rotating at a tremendous speed at a particular angle, and so as it turns on a regular basis, then part of it is towards the sun, part of it is towards the away from the sun, and that's where we get daytime and nighttime. So as the sun is always out there, it's always shining, but when we're on the back side of the Earth, the sun hits the front side of the Earth, and we're in a deep shadow. That's what we call nighttime. Okay. And it's during that time, though, that we can actually look up and we can see the stars. Whereas in the daytime, you look out there now and you can't see any stars at all. So from our perspective, then, all of the planets are shifting. We know we have the Saturn and Jupiter are the two biggest planets in our system. And so what happens is every so often, they will literally line up and make it look like they are one star. And they get super bright, and this happens on a fairly regular basis. But when, how do I say this? When today, so that's what they call a confluence. Okay, let me explain that. When those two come together, and it looks like they are literally passing each other from our perspective, and they form what looks like a giant star. Okay, now it's not as giant as what the graphics. When you see a movie about Jesus, or you see a movie about his birth, and the star is right directly above the barn, then it's not that big, but the astrologers, who always, and that's who the Magi were. They were kings. They were called Magi. They were also very much into astrology, and they watched the stars and saw this confluence happening, and they knew this was a momentous occasion, and so they started traveling to see where this star was going to be, and follow it, and followed it right to Jesus. They knew that it heralded the Messiah coming, and so they all wound up going to Jerusalem, talking to King Herod, and said, "Where is the Messiah going to be born?" And King Herod essentially gave them quarters to stay in, and then he called all of his wise men and astrologers and magicians and everybody that he depended on, and said, "Hey, where is the Messiah going to be born?" And they said, "In Bethlehem," which my understanding is like 14 miles south of Jerusalem, in that general vicinity. And so, he called the Magi back in and talked to them at length to find out exactly when did this star first appear. And so they told him. But it's like, people have asked me, they said, well, why didn't Herod look out the window and see the star? Well, it's because you can't see the star during the daytime, and there was only certain length of times that the star was visible. It wasn't visible constantly. It wasn't visible day and night, I guess. If you were off the Earth, if you're sitting out in space, it's visible 100% of the time. But because the light hits our Earth and it hits our atmosphere, then it illuminates the blue atmosphere that we have. And that's where we get daylight. And of course, it wipes out the view that we have of the stars. And so it's only at night that you can go out and watch this. Okay, so what's happening though is so much of the time, things like this God sets up ahead of time and happens on a regular schedule. Well, that schedule is so vast, though, it takes a long time for us to figure out it's a schedule. And so, there are times when those planets line up from our perspective, and suddenly that star, it appears as that star suddenly appears. Okay, and that's how this happens. This is what they call the Great Confluence. Okay, now this particular year, though, is what they are referring to as a very great confluence. Now, what's the difference? The difference is the position of the Earth and the position of Saturn and Jupiter, they're closer. So when that confluence happens, it's closer to the Earth than it has been in prior confluence dates, and so it's going to be larger. So I didn't want you guys to miss out, because the next time this happens is going to be 2080. The time when we are going to be able to see it regularly is 2080. So if you're in an area where nighttime is going to happen about 5:45, somewhere along in there, okay? If you're in an area where you're not cloud covered, now here in my area, it looks like we're going to be covered up all day, and it looks like we're going to miss it. Hopefully, though, someone somewhere else will, the video cameras will capture the confluence, and we'll be able to watch it on the news or the internet or something. But for those of you who are in an area where the sky is clear, as soon as it gets night, if you look in the southern part of the sky, then if you can see this star. Now, you can definitely see it with a telescope or with binoculars. That makes it a lot easier. But my understanding is that you could also see it with the naked eye. And so, but the astrologers, the Magi, when they first noticed this thing happening, then they knew, they had, even back then, they had rudimentary telescopes and things that they could use, and they started following this thing, and they started to see where this pointed, and that's what took them to Jerusalem and eventually to Bethlehem, and where they found Jesus, Mary, Joseph, and Jesus. And so, and they brought him, literally, what God was doing using these kings was setting Jesus up financially for life. They brought him gold, frankincense, and myrrh, all three extremely valuable. Okay? God knew that they were going to wind up having to go to Egypt, because Herod was going to try to kill this baby. He was going to try to kill Jesus. Why? Because he knew he was the King of Kings. He knew he was the Messiah. If you are a reigning king, you don't want to give up that power. And you don't want to hear that there's a baby that suddenly got born that is going to be the next king. And he's like, okay, I'm going to send the soldiers and I'm going to wipe them out. And that's exactly what he did. But, of course, Joseph was warned in a dream and said, get up, take your stuff, pack your stuff quickly, and get to Egypt. And that's exactly what happened. And then he was also warned in another dream when Herod died and could no longer had access to, was no longer a threat to Jesus. Joseph was warned in a dream again and said, take your son and your wife, and you can go back to Israel now, because those who were trying to kill him are dead. And so he did. And then on the way back, then when they got close to Jerusalem, God warned him in a dream again and let him know that Herod's son was the one that was on the throne. again, you've got a king sitting on the throne. If he finds out that there's a boy that's growing up in his territory that will be the next king, he's going to do the same thing his dad did and try to kill him. So Joseph was warned in a dream not to go back to Jerusalem, and that's why they went on back to Nazareth, where they originally started out in the first place. Okay, so in any case, you know that story. That is well-known Bible story, but the star, as they call it, the Bethlehem star, that was the mystery at that point in time, and having, of course, at that point, I don't know how many people, a general population, even knew that Saturn and Jupiter were up there and how huge they are. And from the perspective of Earth, sitting on this platform, on this planet, then you look up into the sky, and these two, they're literally passing each other. And while they are passing each other in our viewpoint, I mean, let's face it, Saturn and Jupiter are nowhere near each other physically. But as everything is rotating around, they get to the point where they are passing each other, and that takes a little bit of time, and that's when that star showed up. Now, creation scientists also believe that on that particular confluence that the Magi were witnessing, there may actually have been a third planet that had lined up. And some say, no, that's not the possibility, is not a possibility. But some creation scientists believe there may have been a third planet that all three of them lined up and made a super bright star. And that's what caught the attention of the Magi. So today, this confluence is happening again. And Jupiter and Saturn are going to be passing each other, and then later tonight, they say about 5:45, you're going to be able to look up in the sky, and especially if you have a telescope or a pair of binoculars, and you're going to be able to find this star. Okay, and and this particular year is what they're calling a very great confluence, because they are closer to us. So if you have the ability to see this, then take the time to go outside and look up and take a look, because this, as I said, this is not going to happen again until 2080. And even then, it's not going to be as close as it is today. Okay? So I just wanted to come on for a few minutes and make you aware that this was happening today, and not to miss it. Take a little bit of time at 5:45 if you can. If you go outside and you see that it's still you don't see any stars, then you're not going to see the confluence either. If the clouds are covering your view, then hopefully that someone will a camera someplace will the news or whatever will pick up on this, and we will see what this looks like anyway. All right, okay, well, that's literally all I wanted to get on and just make sure that that people are aware that this was happening today, and didn't want you to miss it. Okay? All right. Well, then I will, unless God tells me otherwise, I will see you in a couple of weeks, and you have a very Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, blessings to all of you. Thank you so much for all of the support that you have given me in the Bible study, and I really appreciate it. And thank you, Kathy. Thank you. All right. You guys have a great day. Bye-bye.